What do you remember when you were telling Paulette, your wife, about this move you were going to make down to Illinois? And it was earlier, so what was that like?
I already mentioned that 79 and 1980, the farm economy was in bad shape anyway. And Tractor Supply had sold the factory up in Wisconsin to another gentleman. And I tried to stay on with him, and that did not work out. And of course, then Tim had just been born. And so when we moved to Litchfield, Illinois, Tim was only 5 months old. So having 3 children and a wife, and then walking into a business that had all kinds of problems, it was a real big challenge. And I tell you, my wife was a very strong supporter and helped me through those trying times. But at the same time, I put a lot of time in at the factory, so she had the bigger responsibility of raising the children.
What's your earliest memory of Worksaver?
Well, the factory also dubbed as a babysitter sometimes. So, I'd always get in trouble and get dirty running around the place. And usually Dad would scold me a little bit on that. But I don't know, probably about 6 or 7, we were old enough to do some manual labor. We would just had a little wheelbarrow, and we'd walk up and down the street and pick trash out of the ditches. If posts needed painted around the facility, we would do that. When I got older, I'd do lawn mowing and janitorial work and things of that nature. But as I kept getting older and developing, Dad let me work with the team leaders and the shop supervisors, and they were able to teach me the trades of machining and welding and running CNC equipment. And so anyway, it was a very good education. And, Dad was a strong believer in having us kids come from the bottom up. And, the other thing instilled in us was to make sure we never asked anybody to do a job that we haven't done ourselves. And that was a good thing to learn.
Yeah.
I also took my children to some of the farm shows, and after they'd worked or been around a show or two, then we let them help. They could hand out literature, and then as they acquired some knowledge, they could even talk to some of the people that came up to our booth. And I always think that was a valuable part of their education. Sometimes when we would notice through the schools that they were going to be out of school for 3 or 4 days, the school didn't see it quite that way, but I felt it was that they would learn more at the farm show than they would those 3 or 4 days in school.
Oh yeah.
And I think it gave all my children the ability to talk to strangers and try and answer their questions and help them out and look them in the eye when they're talking to them. I think it was another valuable experience. And they also, I had some very good salespeople, and they worked with them. And I would tell all 3 of my children, well, pay attention to this fella. You're going to learn something if you just watch how he talks to people and his sales technique. Yeah.
I was 11 and sold my first piece of equipment at the Louisville Farm Show, so that was a pretty memorable moment for me.
What was it?
Bale spear, a bucket bale spear. Yep.
So Dad give you the commission on that?
No, I didn't see that. I think it's still in escrow somewhere.
Tim, did you always know that you wanted to do this as a career?
For the most part, yes. I mean, Dad and I have always been able to have that working relationship, and we like working together, and we respect each other's traits. Right out of college, I was planning on going to work for somebody else for a while, but through some situations that happened, the timing was right. They had a need for me to come back and run the shipping department, and so I started with that, and like I said, took over the production facility, and then went on to sales after that. So it just all fell in place. So it would have been nice to get some more outside experience, but it just worked out to start right after college.
Well, it sounds like you're getting an extremely well-rounded perspective since you've been there in the plant management and purchasing and the sales and marketing area. So you're seeing every aspect of the business and getting your hands dirty in all those.
Yes. Yeah, we're very fortunate to have Mike Kloster on our team. And Mike has said he'd like to work at least another 10 years. And that's great with me because we work very well together as well. And then when he's ready to retire, then I'm hoping to take over the whole company.
When you're at this kind of might sound like a little weird question, but let's say you're at a cocktail party and not with ag folk. around, city folks, and they ask you what you do and what it's like to run a small manufacturing company. What would your answer be to them?
Challenging.
Yeah, we usually will just say challenges. To me, one of the other big things that helped me was FEMA. I was fortunate enough that I was asked to I had belonged to FEMA, but I was asked to become on the board, a board member of FEMA. When I first got there and took Paulette with me, one of the older FEMA members, Ed Elston, used to be with the Sunoco company. Ed told us, he said, these people will become like a second family. And that certainly has been true. Mm-hmm. And all the people on the FEMA board and the directors, and the past presidents and so on, very helpful. We very strictly do not talk about anything that would be non-competitive or uncompetitive, I should say. But like when I went to expand the metal fabrication department and buy new production equipment, I would go to the different FEMA members and ask them what did they recommend, and they gave me recommendations. They also gave me some heads up on a couple brands that they had trouble with, and so anyway, when I bought the new equipment, I had good success. I didn't have any problems because it all had been recommended by people that I trusted and knew. And FEMA, we have the spring management sessions. They've had some good speakers come in, and you learn from them, and definitely learn from the other peers within the FEMA group. And it's been a very positive influence and a great big help.
Yeah, the greatest resource of FEMA is its members. And if you get involved and you talk with them, you can learn a lot of do's and don'ts, and it saves you a lot of time and trouble.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you've expanded your knowledge through all these other people who are going to give you their best advice that you don't make a mistake or go off the wrong direction.
And FEMA had, with the cooperation of the members, had plant tours. And I love taking a plant tour. I always learn something. Sometimes you learn what not to do. And that's important too.
Yeah. We've seen a number of family businesses sell out to larger groups or the consolidation. What do you think FEMA will look like in 20 years? Will we have fewer family businesses here and more private equity funded businesses?
I don't think so. I think the ingenuity of our membership, we're always finding solutions, little niche areas that we can all work at, and I don't think that's going to go away. No.
It will to a point. I think it's more difficult for somebody to start in business today than what it was, and it depends. I mean, one of our marketing problems is gentlemen who have an old barn in the back or a shed or some building, and they go buy the parts cut to shape, and then they just weld it together. Well, they only market in a small area, but you got one here, you got another one there, and they're making good wages as far as they're concerned, but of course they don't have the overhead, insurance costs, and all that we do. So obviously they can sell it for so much less. And that becomes a factor, especially on the simpler products.
One of the interviews we did talked about the 80s, and there was, there was nothing backing them up. They persevered because it was the only way to get through it. Mm-hmm. And talked to a second generation who said the problem, 20, 25 years later was that not only were business conditions very challenging and dire in some cases, but now there was something to lose on top of it. That his father didn't have anything to lose at the first time.
Well, that's true. Yeah. When there's nothing there to begin with, you're not going to lose a whole lot. Yeah. But on the other hand, in the early years, I had 3 children at home and a wife, and so we just had to make it work. Mm-hmm. When you find yourself in a corner, there's only one way out. It's a lot of hard work. you better get it done.
Yeah. What have you learned? You've been almost, it sounds like, working alongside your father your entire life. What are some of the tenets, the core principles that you're going to pass on to your children that you've received from your dad?
Well, the first one is just don't be afraid of work. Get in there, get dirty, get the job done, and learn how to, show somebody else how to do it too, and develop those leadership skills. But probably one of the most important lessons I learned from my father was always look at different situations. There's never just one solution. Come up with multiple solutions for a problem and then evaluate them and then pick the best course of action. And it takes a little bit more time to do that, but anytime I was doing design work back in engineering school, Dad would look at something I did and said, okay, do it another way, and force me to take the time to think of a different solution. And that's been very valuable going forward, is just always look at different ways to solve a problem.
Yeah. That's a story that's coming up in these interviews, is the grit of your dad's generation and my dad's generation.
I tell you something that's very important in our working relationship is that we don't take it personal. Work is work, and we're able to separate that from the family life. And we see a lot of other peers that can't do that, and usually that's not successful. But for us, we are fortunate enough we're able to keep it separate. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I was kind of lucky in the early years. I was only a little baby, so I don't remember the early years. So I was kind of fortunate because Dad, he worked ungodly hours, and not only was he our chief engineer, he was our sales manager. He was the the safety man. I mean, he had to run the whole place. He did have a plant manager, but there was a lot of hours and a lot of time that he spent at the factory.